many mics do we rip on the deli? Many money, say many.
Too many MCs, not enough mics. Exit your show like I exit the turnpike. Dyson Dynamite like Dolomite. Double dudes bill like I don't Dick Van Dyke. Starlight to Starbright, the freaks come out at night. Like my man Wyclef. And my Bernard will marshal entourage. Squash the squash.
Welcome to the F Word. My name is Molly Connell. I'm your producer of the show. The things you will hear over the next 35 minutes represent the views of the F Word and the people making them. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. All right, sorry for the late start. So I'll make this brief. Our guests today, Alida, Danielle, who's usually on here, and John. And we'll be doing a show about feminist music and women's roles in the music industry.
And we can go a little late because we can cut into my show if we have to. So that's next. We can go as long as we need.
So I'm going to let Alida kind of introduce herself and give a background of all the things she's involved with.
Cool. So thank you for inviting me on the show. My name is Alida Cardos Whaley. I am a recent, I guess, how long do you get to say recent? After you graduate, recent graduate of UW-Madison, where I was involved with the First Wave program. And I'm also a member, or an affiliate artist is how we refer to each other, of the Not Enough Mics, or NEM, collaborative. And so to give a little background, I guess, about those two different entities, they're definitely also connected. But First Wave is a spoken word, urban arts, hip-hop, theater, living, learning community, has multiple titles, and it was born in 2007, where I was a member of the inaugural cohort, and it's a program that accepts 15 students into the university every year on full tuition scholarship, and basically, a lot of times we compare it to being a student athlete, but instead of being a student athlete, it's being a student artist. And so it's a really rigorous program that is all about building family and creating art, and supporting young people who are really dedicated to all of the elements of hip hop, to spoken word, to, whatever medium they use to express themselves artistically. And so that program, what we do is we come in and we have our cohort, which really becomes our family, and we take some classes together. Some of us, we live on the same floor in the residence hall. We build together, and we create art. And we critique each other's art, and we build these shows that we then, we are blessed to have the privilege to perform them all over the U.S. and also outside. We've performed in Panama and London, and so some really crazy opportunities coming out of that program. And that is where I met my two of my very close friends, Sophia Snow from Boston, and Blair White from Minneapolis, who are the two co-founders of NEM, of the Not Enough Mics Collaborative, and they are two phenomenal, inspirational, crazy, beautiful women. They're both MCs. They're both poets and DJ. Blair's a DJ, and Sophia is also a dancer, a B-girl. And so, around January 2011, they were having this conversation about how many talented women they know, how many talented MCs they know, female MCs, and they were talking about what's really reflected in the media and mainstream, and how there's really not a lot of women who have gotten, you know, that shine that they deserve to, especially in hip hop. And so they decided to form a collaborative that would support all of the female artists that they know, because they understood that, you know, if you don't see something, you have to grow it. So really trying to provide that space. And so it started in out of Madison while we were all undergrads there. But there's affiliate artists from Chicago to the East Coast and all in between, also over in Minnesota and everything. And it's really a network for women with a Y, women identified artists, to come and celebrate themselves and each other. And it's also really all about sisterhood and demystifying that whole, we're pitted against each other. This is a battle, you know, like only one of us can survive, because that's not what it's about. And a lot of times that's how it's portrayed in music for female MCs. And so really embracing each other and all that we have to offer. And while it was started out with female MCs in mind, it's really about female artists. And I guess I say female, and sometimes, you know, language get tripped up in that, but it's really about, we embrace this term of women with a Y, because we're trying to make sure that, I mean, as an organization, as an organization that was, you know, created to to create more space for misrepresented or underrepresented people, we want to make sure that anybody who identifies as a woman can feel comfortable in this space. So, you know, including our sisters who identify as queer and don't, they really want that Y to be there. And I really, in the beginning, I really pushed for that Y to be there, because I think that's just a really integral part of embracing all of our sisters. So that's a little bit about the collaborative, and a little bit about First Wave.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely the type of thing that we encourage on this show, and very happy to have you as a guest. You talked a little bit about the B-girl kind of thing. Maybe John Terry is on our show, and I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm John. I am Molly's teacher. I am a River West radio regular and have my own program on here, and I am very interested in all types of music, and I think that this is an especially awesome topic, so I'm very glad to be here to discuss and contribute what I can.
So kind of a little bit of background, like, on the B-girl kind of scene, I guess, for somebody that doesn't really maybe know fully about that. A little background from either of you.
I mean, in terms of history, I mean, I think first, this is awesome. Alita, the program that you're describing is something that is really rare, that I don't think would even be possible in like the year 2000, right? And to see it come in the year 2007, right? Like, I know that this, you know, it would have been absolutely laughed out of any university in even the 90s, right? Like that something like this is extremely important, and you see right away why, because look at what it comes out of it right away, right? Like, you finally give people a space to create, and then big surprise, like they find out that they can create, right? And so I think that, you know, historically women have always been there, right? But if you look at the mainstream, right, you're going to only see sort of what you see, and you usually see sporadic kind of exception to the rule sort of examples. And, you know, it's people who maybe have compromised their artistic integrity for some reason or another, because if you want to make it, right, you don't necessarily always get to be an artist. You have to do what other people want you to do to become that kind of artist, right? And so, and it puts men and women in this kind of position, right, to do things that you maybe don't want to do to be able to make it. And so the people who make it obviously have kind of compromised that on some level. And so, you know, if you look back historically, you'll see, like, geez, there wasn't many women here. That doesn't mean that there wasn't many women there, right? It means that these are the people who made it for whatever reason. And so, you know, historically looking at like B-boy, B-girl culture, it's one of those things that, right, you know, B-boy becomes the term. And people almost use, like B-girl as like a modifier, right? Like, if we're talking about this, we're talking about men, unless we happen to make it clear that we're talking about women, which is just never the case. It was young men and women who were doing this. It's a thing. It's not. It's a very different kind of competition, right? Everybody can do this. Anybody can be an MC. Anybody can do the dance moves, right? But only a few people sort of make it. So I think that you're hitting on one of these kind of points is right that women have always been there. If they get to be represented, that has sort of something to do with things beyond their control, beyond the b-boys' control. So in our class when we watch video, it's a bunch of guys breakdancing, right? And they don't even have one woman in the crew, right? Who that when they're in the street, they have plenty of women in the crew. So it's just one of those things that women are always there. They don't show up because of other reasons.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add something really quick. Like in terms of, like history of hip hop culture, it's funny because a lot of people, they say, like, oh, this person, is the founder of hip hop, or this crew was the coiners of this term. But at those jams, in the beginning, which were parties where people would come together, a lot of those jams were organized by women. And it's just funny that you don't hear that part of the story. But, since the beginning of where hip-hop was born from, those are women that were creating those spaces for people to come and celebrate in. And there's just, little cool side thing.
I think that's always good is like you get everybody pays attention to the one artist and there might be 400 people in the crowd. And like if you're going to go back and study it, you study the one artist. When there's 400 people in the crowd, and it's like, well, who's in the crowd? Right? Or who set this up?
I love that you brought up about women creating that space because my other host, Danielle, actually this whole idea for this show really was born out of this ladies kind of night. And it was, a lot of people, I've had friends that criticize like ladies night, but that's where the whole idea of this show came out of. So I think women building a space is a very cool thing and slowly being more accepted. Like this right here, even a show and having you on and the things you do with the Not Enough Mics is so great.
I have a question because you mentioned earlier about kind of pitting the paradigm being that you have to pit yourselves against each other kind of a thing. That's something that we've talked about several times. This whole idea that there's only a few spaces. Like we're organizers, so we're that's how it is in the organizing world as well. Like there's only a few spaces for women. Like can you kind of expand on that like in the music world a little bit and like what you meant by that, like kind of pitting against each other and then again how you guys are kind of practically fighting against that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like how I see, and I guess, I'm speaking from my own perspective and I would never want to speak for the near 50 women that are a part of NEM. But I really see like in the music industry, and I guess I'm specifically speaking about like hip hop, I think it's pretty like reflective of society. And I feel like in society there's it's part of almost our culture. Maybe I don't know if it's US or what, but there's this culture of women being in competition with each other. And it's, whether it's like in like heterosexual relationships where there's two women, fighting for this one man or whatever. There's always, I feel like from movies, to pop culture, everything, there's always this thing about women having to fight, like you said, for these few spaces or for, the affection or whatever of whoever this higher power or this man or this
record producer,
exactly. And that's just not what we're about individually. That's not what NEM's about. That's not what First Wave is about. And what all of, myself as individual, NEM, First Wave is about what we're all about is family, and embracing each other as sisters and brothers and supporting each other, and not tearing people down, like offering maybe someone wants a critique on something, but in a constructive way, and really trying to lift our communities, because we also, a lot of us come from poor communities, and a lot of us are people of color, and so we know that if we want to, bring our communities together, we know that we have to stop, all of that type of competition. But at the same time, competition is very much a part of hip-hop culture since the beginning. But I think that it can exist in a healthy way, in a fun way, in a celebratory way. It doesn't have to exist in a way that tears someone down to the point where they have no self-esteem later and they can't, lift themselves up. Because if we strip ourselves down to that and we can't even lift ourselves up, we're definitely not going to be able to lift our communities up. And I don't know if I...
No, that's so great. We just did a show on competition. So that's why me and Danielle are both like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. But, yeah, I think that's a huge point. I'm really glad Danielle focused on that too. And you were talking about before how it's grown so much since 2007. Do you feel that First Wave at UW-Madison is creating a community? Like in the Madison community or even in the United States, throughout having these students come from other parts of the country to Madison and going back to their communities or going out into their future careers, creating a new mindset and a new community. Do you feel First Wave is doing that?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I don't think it's something that the people who were a part of making First Wave a reality had in mind when they were building the foundation. I think that's something that's happening organically, but it definitely is. I mean, obviously, like NEM, the two co-founders are members of First Wave. Myself, there's a group of us who we want to make a school here in Milwaukee we want it to be grounded in social justice and popular education and hip-hop theater. And some of us are involved. We come from First Wave. And me personally, I feel like what I learned in being a part of that community was that if you don't see something, you can grow it. I don't think I understood that concept or even knew it existed when I was in high school. But once I got involved with First Wave, that really, the seed grew. And in First Wave, there's people from Hawaii all the way from, the west, just part of the United States, to Boston, to New York, and everywhere in between. People from Portland and Florida and Texas and all over the Midwest. And it's just such a unique program, all these people coming from across the United States together, and transforming each other, and then going back. Obviously, we're going, we then disperse from there, and there's just all different types of things being born. And we are very, still, we haven't seen all of the different ways that, what things are being born out of that, because we did just have, the first class graduate in 2011. So
yeah.
As the years go, we'll get to see what other things are born. But I think it's a crazy, beautiful thing that's happening, because I think that sometimes what we lack in our U.S. culture is like personal connection. And if we could just connect more with each other and share our stories and build, we would just have so much more humanity, and when we would be able to achieve so much more, like it would just be limitless, the possibilities. Yeah. And so I really feel like that's something that First Wave provides the space for, and I think that I wish there was more programs that existed at the university level, like First Wave.
Yeah, I mean, we have a professor here who probably knows more about UWM than I do, being a student.
Maybe.
But do you see any kind of program like that, or any kind of, I mean, obviously our class definitely promotes these same values.
I think, there are like two constraints in the university. One is what the professor is willing to do because of what they think they should do. And then another is what the university is willing to pool their resources to do, which don't always link up, right? So, to find people who would advocate for a program like this, who are professors, that would be easy. I would definitely advocate for something like that. To find somebody within the bureaucracy to be able to fund this is something different. So we have a lot of things that are, so we have like a communities and cultures certificate, right? But what it really is you're just taking a certain set of classes, and if you take all, 6 of them or whatever, you get the certificate. It's not like you're actually building a sort of community of people who are going to these classes together, learning these things together, getting this certificate as a meaningful thing that everyone is doing. And I think that that's one of the toughest things. And usually when we do that, it's like an honors program. And how do you get into the honors program? Like it becomes more exclusive.
Yeah.
So all the programs that are like that at universities right now usually tend to do almost the exact opposite thing and reinforce, like, here are really privileged students who have had the time when they were in high school to get opportunities that nobody else would have had, to put together these really remarkable applications, right, to get into this program. We keep them together, get them out together so we can say that we have this program that has 100% graduation rate. Everyone's rich and famous when they get out, right? So it's like, when we do programs like that, it very much has the opposite. It usually helps out people who probably don't need the help anyways.
So taking out the bureaucracy, what about the Milwaukee community, River West community? Do you see kind of any influence of women in the bebop, in the hip hop, in the kind of first wave realm in our community, like that growing at all? Or?
I see, I feel, and I just had some guys who are very, doing socially conscious hip hop on my show on last Monday, and really, it is, what is defined as hip hop is so narrow everywhere that you go, that it's one of these things, and this is what I've always found, because it's not so hard to find women if you go looking for them, but you have to look under different names, right? So instead of punk, like, women are doing the exact same thing in the exact same place at the exact same time and hanging out with the same people, but it's like it'll have a different name because it's women doing it, right? So it's like, instead of just calling it punk rock, well, that's new wave. Why? Because a woman is singing, right? Or because a woman is playing the instrument, right? So it's like, if you find this, you have to like probably look under a different label than hip hop, to be able to find these things. So, in this, and I think that the influence is always there, that women are always there, that the only problem is that once women have created a space, it's easy if the larger culture wants to sort of minimize that or make it a woman's only space and make that be like an aberration instead of something normal. So for me, if I shave and get a haircut and put on a suit, I can basically go anywhere. Being a white man, I have access to any space that I want, and really it's a matter, I come from a lower class background, but you can fake that much easier than you can fake gender or race, right? So I can put on a suit and shave and go and, parade around with rich, white men if I chose to, right? Like, I could enter that space. And so I think that part of it is that there are some people who might not care about this space being created, but it's kind of sort of like, fuck them anyways, because they don't care anyways. They're the people that you are creating in opposition to.
Yeah, I'm sure Danielle can relate to that spatial separation too, or just being an organizer.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask another question for you as well, because about like the people within, like, cause you said it was like women and men, like self-identified women and men that were part of this new wave thing that you were in, outside of the Not Enough Mics, but in First Wave. Sorry, new wave. You said that much before. I got it in my head. So in First Wave, yeah. So what I was wondering is, like, what is that relationship like? Do you see like any tensions there at all about this issue, or is it like totally supportive? Like, is it somewhere in between? How does that work?
I definitely. Let me see.
Not to get too personal, because I know that's how it gets, but.
So I feel like, there's definitely, you know, there's been a lot of conversations between the men and the women of First Wave about a lot of different things, about, you know, our roles in the program, like who, you know, who gets this opportunity or who can more easily access this or whatever, and things that John was also talking about. And I think something that when you ask that question that comes to mind was what I witnessed on Saturday. So every fall there's a festival called Passing the Mic that the Office of Multicultural Arts Initiatives does, which that's what First Wave is run out of, that office. And there was it was a 3-day festival, and Saturday was kind of the end of all of that, the closing of it, and it was done in honor of a first waver who passed away, saving the life of another earlier in the semester, and it was just beautiful. And what made me think of that right now was that it was the first time where I saw women of First Wave just like blowing everyone's mind away, because they were doing a lot more vocal stuff, and they were rapping and they were singing, and it wasn't just one person performing. There was always at least 3 people on the stage, and that's never really been done before. In my cohort, you know, we were a lot more spoken word heavy, and we never really explored too much with, you know, having different women, you know, collaborating vocally, and it was just amazing. And I feel like that was the first time that I've seen that, and so it's just beautiful to know that that's, you know, I feel like that's happening because the space is open to that. The space in First Wave is open to that, and I feel like more women are, you know, exploring the different, you know, mediums, and there's 6 cohorts on campus right now. In the 6th cohort, all of the women actually during the summer, they were in a summer program where all the First Wavers, they lived together and taking classes together, and all of the women recorded a track and they all rapped on it. And a lot of them, that was the first time they ever rapped. That was the first time they wrote verses and bars and spit them. And some of them, you know, were about, like, they weren't about anything. They were talking about themselves, you know. I mean, like, that's actually how, you know, a lot of hip hop started out. You know, you talk about what do you have and what are you about to do. And but that was just crazy because, like, my cohort, there was, you know, only like one female MC who came in identifying like that, and now all of these women, all of the women of the 6th cohort collaborated together and did this track, and there's probably only a couple who came in identifying as MCs, and so I feel like the space is just becoming open to whatever, and it's supporting people in a way that I don't know how it's doing that, but it is, and it's just really, it's great. And I don't think that exists. I don't think that's really easy to do a lot, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe, you know, sometimes you're part of like a foundation, but you don't necessarily see the ways in which, you know, what role did you play. Sometimes you're not able to look at it from the inside. But
do you feel that really gave you a stable foundation, like you said, to launch the Not Enough Mics then? Was it really launched out of that first wave you were saying before?
I think that it was more so from these 2 women, from Sophia and Blair, and from their, you know, all of their experiences in being, I mean, because together they rep like a good amount of the elements of hip hop, and so they've been a part of different spaces where they've been marginalized, or they've seen how underrepresented, you know, women are, and so I feel like it was more of them
coming together.
Yep, and having that conversation. But of course, they wouldn't have met if it wasn't for First Wave.
So I definitely like to talk about the women of Not Enough Mics. And just kind of music that inspires them, and you guys as a group get into more the music side aspect. So maybe a couple Not Enough Mic artists that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, actually, and we have some music
Yeah.
that
I
we'd
have
also
got,
like to share.
I believe that I have everybody from the first two mixtapes.
Mixtapes,
So
yeah.
I've got.
And so those two mixtapes, I wanted to see if maybe we could share. There's a spoken word track that opens up the first one,
Yeah,
called Praise, and I think that really speaks to NEM. It speaks to you. You will experience it. If we can play that, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay, it should.
Praise the auto-tune.
There we go. Yep.
Praise the lobotomy of the throat. The marrowless construct of the note, the way it steals the hop from hip and replaces it with steel. Praise the hip replacement. The crippled walk of the rapper who freestyles his fantasies into paraplegic women whose mouths swallow everything below his waist without feeling her limbs like, look ma, no hands. Praise the women who forgot about their hands when they are bound to their ankles, when the label tells them that pussy is only relevant if it can be sold on a 13-track album, when the record producers fuck them into contracts without protection. Who will protect us? Praise the rubber that's never there for us. Praise the plastic and the Barbie dolls and the 14-year-old girls who are wrapping themselves into Barbie dolls. Pray for the 14-year-old girls who will never know who MC Light is. Light as a rock, how heavy we young ladies be. Praise the MCs. Praise the light for reminding me that if heaven had a height, I would be that tall. Remember to praise the Lord when you don't know who to trust in your speakers anymore. When you try to hold God people's back that long. Praise Lauren for reminding me that the chain of Satan wasn't made that strong. Praise the miseducation of the womb and the way we still rock it and hold it up in the booth like, yeah, this is where the cipher was birthed from. This is where the cipher was birthed from bellies full of boom bap and metronome. Praise the bass in our walk, even when there aren't enough mics to body the shakes. Introducing the Not Enough Mics Collaborative.
There we go.
All right, so yeah, we just heard that piece. A little bit about the piece or how it was influenced by the Not Enough Mics artists, or if it was really just her creation a little bit.
So that was Praise by Tahira Nurse, and she is also actually a member of the First Wave program. And all of, so we have two mixtapes out that are, available for free download. Anybody who wants to hear more or put that on repeat or anything, you can go check out notenoughmics.bandcamp.com. And what the two mixtapes really are, none of the songs were created specifically for Not Enough Mics, because like we said, we don't own anyone's art, we don't own anybody, and so a lot of people have contributed to those mixtapes, pieces that they already had or that they put it together because they knew there was the opportunity to put it on this mixtape, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Tahira wrote that piece because she wanted it to be a part of the first mixtape. And so she really, a lot of the different things she talked about was young girls coming up in this society, and, the different, the reality of what that looks like right now. And how our society right now isn't necessarily providing a healthy environment for our young women to come up in. And so I love that piece. I think that it's the perfect way to open up our first mixtape. And there's one line that's always stuck in my head, and it's, pray for the little girl who doesn't know who MC Light is. And that's, one of the I guess, I don't know if I want to say icon, but I guess for lack of a better word, that's, one of the women that we all are familiar with, as an artist, along with Lauryn Hill, and Erykah Badu and India Ari, and we all have our different influences. Then of course they're not all just women who've influenced us, because there's also men out there who are part of making space for women, who are a part of building inclusive movements and communities.
Yeah, I would say, just listening to the song before it's great because it works like an introduction to the collective, sort of, I feel like, which is not always easy to do with like poetry, right? Like to actually make something work as like, I'm introducing you to what you are about to hear, but I'm also telling this kind of different sort of story, which is fantastic. And when you're talking about like influences and men making space, like obviously I'm a man here, it's I think that it's difficult for men to do that. Not that there's like never an excuse for them, right? Because what is popular, what sells is, it's bitches and hoes. It's incredible how terrifying the culture for young men and young women, right? The pressure on young men to act this role, the pressure on young women to accept their role, right? Like it, and it's really, when you're talking about 14, 15-year-old kids, when everybody's learning this stuff, it's something that's so far, so complex and so much out of their control, but they're just repeatedly bombarded with these images. So it's really important to, bring up, the one thing that men can do is speak to men. So it's sort of, in my class, if I talk about race, it's not special. I'm not asking for special treatment for my race. If I talk about women, right, if I talk about any kind of different gender identities or different sexualities, then it's not like special pleading or special privileges like, hey, I want my group to do better, right? It's actually me saying, hey, I'm in the group that has it the easiest. I wish every other group. And then there's that idea too that is like, if we have racism, if we have sexism, it's better for white people and it's better for men, but it's worse for men and it's worse for white people, right? But the idea is that that's what's protecting us and keeping our privilege. So, I think it's really important to think that men actually have an active role. And even if it's, I think that it's terrible when people say, like, well, women get in free, that's unfair to the man, right? It's like, this is so stupid, right? But this is the problems that women have to go through, right? It's like, well, we want to have a meeting that's women only. Well, you're being sexist, right? Like, it's so stupid, but that makes so much sense in our larger culture, which is so terrible. Like, we have gone so wrong in that regard. So, I'm a person who would say, like, hey, if women want their own space to do something, then sure, they should have that, right? And if they don't want to let men in, they don't have to. And if they only want to let men in if they're wearing a dress, then they only let men in if they're wearing a dress. And if they only let men in if they pay $5, then they only let men in if they pay $5, right? Because that's, men already have that. Like, they're doing that to everybody else. You can come in, but you have to act like this, right? And that's the expectation. And you don't necessarily have to, but if you don't, we'll exclude you, or we'll treat you differently, right? You can be here, but we aren't going to like you, or we're not going to treat you right? So thinking, just from the male perspective, and it's so hard to be a man to do that in hip-hop, but men can play a really, really important role, even if it's as simple as like, I'm not going to be doing bitches and hoes the whole time, or I'm not going to be treating like women like objects, right? Like, the culture, it's gotten so bad that just by not being bad is like as good as you can do, right? Like, that's not even doing good. You should be, there should be people, I'm thinking The Coup is one rapper that I can think of, like, very few people who are doing actually something actively pro-feminist, coming from a male perspective. But, it's bad when you get to the point where it's like just not being really bad might be about as good as you can get.
Yeah.
Bad.
Have you heard that? It's like a newer song of Lupe's, and it's called, I don't usually say the B word, but it's called Bitch Bad.
They sent that link around to our class. Somebody had sent it to me. There's another one too by Bamboo, which is good. One of my students got, it's great having students because they bring me all sorts of cool stuff, and so it's like I thank them all the time for giving me cool stuff and getting to come and do this talk. Bamboo, The Queen is Dead, which is an interesting track too, and both of them are kind of doing the same thing, toying with the idea of the sort of like, bitches and hoes kind of thing. And in the Bamboo track, he is saying like, you can't just sub in queen for bitch and say the exact same sentence, right? Like, and I think that's pretty progressive, for coming from a male perspective to say, like, hey, you can't just say like, you're my queen, but you're mine,
Yeah.
right? And my queen is gonna do
Yeah.
what I want, like it's, you don't just get to take that word out and replace it with something else and replace it with queen and then pretend that it's all of a sudden respectful or something like that. So there's definitely, an education gap, I feel. It's not even necessarily an education gap. There's a pressure from the recording industry. So, mainstream, Lupe, one of the rare examples, and I don't think that this Bamboo track is very popular. I don't think that, the rapper's selling a lot. It's one of those things, if you want to be popular, can you do it?
The song you brought up, will you tell people about it?
Yeah.
So you
So
don't buy that kind of
sometime you should play it on the show. That would be, and you could critically analyze it, and I would be interested in
I
seeing
could
what
maybe find it.
y'all would have to say. But it's a song that kind of breaks down these different roles that exist in the in hip hop, I guess in rap industry. So what role are the men playing, and what role are the women playing? And so that's like a a very like this role of being a hoe, and then this role of like being a sex icon, and then this role of being this like thug, I guess, who's all about money, and there's a video actually that goes along with the song, and I feel like I feel like the song is educational, and it also ties in how these are just roles, but when they're being received by young people, that they're perceiving that as reality, but really at the end of the day, the woman goes and takes off her fake ass. She's wearing, in the video, she's wearing a fake, ass, and the dude takes off his grill, and then at the end, the video closes, and they're both putting on blackface, and so it ties it back to this idea of minstrel shows, and how for me it's like is this modern day minstrel shows, like is that what rap and hip hop has become, in the way that it snatches up people of color, and specifically black men and women.
How do you feel about kind of some popular media trying to take back the word bitch? Like, you have bitch media. I know the very controversial topic of Beyonce. Some women feel that, like my younger sister said I'm never allowed to criticize Beyonce on my show. But I guess, she has a song where she refers to herself as a bitch in a very matter-of-fact way. I guess, what's your opinion on kind of, because I heard you mention that you don't...
That I don't say it. Yeah, and I guess that's just me trying to not cuss as much as I used to. And I have a 4-month-old baby, and so I'm not trying to cuss around the baby. But I guess I never really liked the word bitch, because I feel like there's just some words that when you hear them, they don't stick with you. They don't hit you the right way.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how that word's always been for me, and maybe it's because maybe a lot of my exposures to the word have been in a negative light.
Yeah.
But I definitely support women who use that word, who use it because they feel like it's empowering to them, because that's them, But I definitely, I don't like when like my good friend, you know, who's a woman, you know, would say like, you know, refer to me as her B. But I also feel comfortable enough to communicate that. And actually, you bringing up Beyonce made me think of her song "Girls Run the World," because that song was a lot of us in NEM were talking about that, because some people were like, "Well, why did she say girls? Why not women? I'm not a girl, I'm a woman." And so that was really controversial when that song came out. And that's another thing. Like, you could criticize that, or we can't have like. We should call it Beyonce and ask her, like, why did you choose girl and not woman?
Invite her on the show.
Right? Let's invite her on the show.
She's been on my show a couple of times. Put in a phone call.
That's really interesting to me personally, because I have a really kind of strong personal interest in just language, the way we talk about women, and music especially is obviously a huge part of the way that we talk about women. So it's really interesting to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah.
I think that's also like the language is so important because it contains all of the ideas that we can express, and if you only have access to certain kinds of language, and if there are other things in the culture that really direct you into these certain kind of ways of expressing yourself, right? Like, so masculinity becomes, you know, like if you touch another man, you know, well, you're gay because you've touched another man, right? Because we have no way to like properly express certain kinds of things. And it even maybe goes back to, you know, I think that you're right about like atomization in society, right? Like there's a lot of things that keep us from coming together. And I don't think that that's, you know, that's not unintentional. It's not an accident, and it's not people's fault, even though people are the ones who might seem like they're the ones doing it, right? And it's the same thing with language. If you're offered just a very basic toolkit and no one's going to reward you for expanding it, and no one is going to give you a pat on the back for not saying the wrong thing, right? But you might get a pat on the back for saying the wrong thing consistently. So, you know, it's always, I mean, in the classic debate is like, you know, the N-word, right? And you can say this, you know, both ways, like, you know, is that doing something bad or doing something good? Well, it really kind of distracts from like patriarchy and racism, right? Like, and it's a way for somebody else to say, well, she obviously doesn't respect other women, you know, she's calling them bitches, right? Here's one way for me to criticize that, right? Which is just really like kind of a childish way to criticize it, right? Like it doesn't have anything to do with the actual core problem, right? So, I mean, language is just extremely, it's more important than we know, and we can only think like that, right? You can only think with the words. You know, we say that in my class. Every time you speak, you're quoting a dictionary. You know, you're not actually saying something. Like, you're saying things that other people have defined for you, right? And to change those definitions, I mean, it always happens, right? To say the same word, obviously, you know, bitch or any of these tons of words that you can think of, they mean something totally different now than they meant even 20 years ago, right? Even though it still sounds the same, and even if you go back and read something from 20 years ago, it still sounds like it's the same. The meaning is constantly changing. So, you know, I really love the idea of like taking back the word queer, because to me it makes a little bit more sense, right? Because instead of putting a bunch of people who don't really belong together in one group, you're actually, by saying queer, is saying like something like, hey, let's stop trying to make groups. Like,
Hey, man.
like, right? Like, it should not be our goal to make these little categories, because once you do, it's impossible for people to cooperate, right? And we're like in this kind of society that wants groups, quantifiable, right? You are in
Something
this
to check
race.
on
You're in this race.
form.
We've counted you. We know, you know, like we want you to identify that and have you in these boxes. And, you know, you put people in those boxes, and then it's really easy to make them seem like they have different interests even when they don't.
Yeah, that's a whole nother, we could talk about language and how it shapes our reality for so long. And I feel like something that in Lupe, that song that we were talking about, that's directly related, is how Lupe breaks it down with the story of this little boy and little girl who grow up to be, you know, the video hoe and the gangster or whatever, and how one of them is perceiving the word bitch as like being, you know, really sexual, and like, you know, trying to show off your body, sell your body, and the other is seeing bitch as this like parallel with it's the dude in the video, like seeing that as his mom, because she would sing along with the songs and say like, you know, I'm a bad bitch, and so he wasn't holding that on the level of, you know, this overly sexual woman coming on to him. He was holding that as like, no, like bitch is like queen, you know what I mean? And so that's something that's interesting related to language. And then there was one other thing I wanted to say was about how like how limiting our English language is. For example, like how we don't really have, you know, gender neutral or non-gender specific pronouns. And there's some languages, you know, around the world that do have gender neutral pronouns, and there are some languages, for example, that don't have past tense, that I was just reading about in this book. And that's really beautiful to me. And me and my partner, Alci, we're actually, our child, Aliale, we're raising them without trying to not impose as much gender as we can. And so one way is through language, and so we're using and encouraging, you know, the people who are part of our community to use non-gender specific pronouns. So like I use they and them and their and theirs. But if you're just talking to somebody and you say that, they're like, oh, you have twins, you know, because it's ingrained that is only that's only used to refer to plural. And so it's just so interesting, like language and the things that we attach, you know. If like the first thing you ask when you see a baby a lot of times is that a girl or a boy, or you're pregnant, oh, are you having a girl or a boy? And it's like that's our first like instinct to ask, because then, you know, we say he or she, and then, you know, we say blue or pink, and then we say, you know, sports Barbie dolls, and you know, and it's like it all starts from this very basic thing that is language. And I just could talk about that forever, and it's just so like intriguing.
Definitely. I guess to bring it all back to music, Danielle, I know you perform music.
Oh my.
And you're very talented and wonderful. And did you want to talk a little bit about your songwriting process or language or perform?
Molly said she wanted to do women in music, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. I would love to learn more about it, because I just like to sing and always sang for my whole life. So I'm really not a good guitar player, so I wrote the song on the guitar, but we're going to see how well it goes. But it's about Medusa, and I don't know if anybody knows the story of Medusa. Like, Medusa is a figure in feminism now, kind of because of the mythology around her. She was, I can't remember who she was the daughter of, but it was one of the gods, and she was very beautiful. And another one of the, I wish I should have looked this up. I should have looked up exactly who this was, but one of the goddesses was very jealous of her, because she was like, a lot of the goddesses were jealous of her, because she was very beautiful, like half mortal or something. And so one day Poseidon raped her, and this goddess who was very jealous of her got even more jealous of her, because she was in love with Poseidon. And so she put this curse on her that gave her like a head of snakes, and anytime a person looked at her, they would turn to stone. Well, then Medusa that became like a Gorgon, and she became evil because of that. And in mythology, because of like how rape was seen at that time, it was accepted that she would be shamed for being raped, because so like that's like the, you know, whatever. But feminists have kind of taken that back and kind of changed the story about her. And made her a symbol of beauty. And so, like, there's this quote that I really love, and it's from a Crime Think magazine, actually, and it says Medusa's face on it. And it says, beauty must be defined as what we are, because if it's not, it will be our worst enemy. And so it was, like, a really interesting thing. And I was talking to a lot of women in my community about coercion. So I kind of wrote this song from perspective of what I've been talking about with women in my community, but using kind of the Medusa symbol. So just want to throw that out there. And I don't know if there's a way to, again.
Pretty loud, so it should catch.
Okay. Okay, it's a little out of tune, but I don't feel like taking the time to tune it, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. The sea surrounds her feet while he waits for her to sleep. What you take is your decay, and she sings a song so sweet. As waves crash up her dress, and she felt a long caress. Fear twinkled in her eyes, but the grin surrounds her life. Need me? Do you need me? And thus he sealed her fate. Her head of writhing snakes, a curse upon her face, and so they turn away. Beautiful, you are beautiful. Beautiful, you are beautiful. That's it.
Oh, excellent.
We should play, I think, maybe one or two more from
Yeah.
her
Okay, some
album. If there's
Songs
some
from
she
the
wants-
collective.
Yeah. If she wants to let us know what would be best for that.
What was that?
We're back, yes. you-
So yeah, we just were thinking maybe a few more songs from the Not Enough Mics. If there's any in particular that you wanted to talk about or play on the show, or both.
There was two songs that if we could play one of them, or that I had in mind, and I also want to share with anyone listening who might want to learn more about First Wave or Not Enough Mics. Again, we have the Bandcamp, notenoughmics.bandcamp.com, where anybody can get the free downloads of our music, and it's also, we have some of our affiliate artists, their Bandcamps linked up there, so you can check out some of the other artists. And if you wanted to learn more about First Wave, you could check out omai.wisc.edu, which is omai.wisc.edu. But there was, if we had time, one of the songs is Lil Mama. I think that is on the first mixtape. And then if there's time, the other one is on the second.
Could Little Mama be Crazy Mama? Is it?
Oh yeah, Crazy Mama.
Crazy Mama?
Not
Okay.
Lil Mama, Crazy
Okay.
Mama.
Crazy Mama.
And that's by FM Supreme.
All right, you should be set to go.
Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Yeah, more issues Crazy mama brought the drama, swear I never brought the llama. I got more issues than for baby mama. Soon I am a monster. Sham like we croppers, smoking like we rosters. Of course we show stoppers. Come left on, that's my object. I rap that non-profit success, that's my logic. Blast human rocket, no force cannot stop this. Similar to toxic, drunk said a virus. I'm sitting Miley Cyrus, get touched by the Midas. They blinded, I'm the brightest. Built my own plane, AJ Wright, I'm the pilot. My roses are violet, red nuts are red. I don't mess with the feds, cause they apprehending dead. They not in their head while they press infrared. Cream at the entrance, I hate this looking man. On the real, it's all good. I'm soon up in your hood, a female night like Suge, man. I wish this shit was wood. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Got more issues than for baby mama. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Got more issues than for baby mama. You should never. Said you should never. It's coming well. It's coming well. It's coming well. You should never. Said you should never. It's coming well. It's coming well. It's coming well. This verse is through. They gon' want a picture proof. Who's the windiest in the city making moves?
You.
FM Supreme, nothing less than the truth. Used to try to tell dudes that basic I'm a real fool, but they passed on that bill. I'm moving, they still plotting a billion ways to get a record deal. They wanna sell sex appeal. I wanna sell how I feel. I spit what's real, so forget how I feel. They call me crazy mama, plant seeds like a farmer. Thanks so much, yeah, Obama. This for T-Ma, he Peter Parker. Real talk, that's my nephew. The world, God bless you. Bay Clark, my mother, MPG, no other. I love the up like a brother. It's Trump type for life. Shut town, no ice, and I was born to rock the mic. Don't forget the limelight. I just want my money right. Every day I'm hustling, so please believe the hype. I'm crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Never brought the llama, swear I never brought the llama. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Got more issues than both baby mamas. You should never. Said you should never. It's coming well. It's coming well. It's coming well. Said you should never. Said you should never. It's coming well. It's coming well. It's coming well. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Never brought the llama, swear I never brought the llama. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Got more issues than for baby mama. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Never brought the llama, swear I never brought the llama. Crazy mama brought the drama, but I never brought the llama. Got more issues than for baby mamas. Fuck baby mamas. Fuck baby mamas. Fuck baby mamas. Fuck baby mamas. Yeah, I got more issues than for baby mamas. Yeah.
So that was FM Supreme with Crazy Mama. And one thing I just wanted to add really quick was about how easy it is to be an affiliate artist of Not Enough Mics. So anybody who's interested, again, can check out. It's under construction. Our website is under construction, but notenoughmics.com. And I also wanted to put in there how we don't try to, control anyone's message at all. And I think that that's really important in creating space, not trying to, control language like we were talking about earlier, and letting people really use what language they're comfortable with, and talking about what's real for them in communicating through their music. And I just wanted to share an event going on this Friday for anybody interested. And it is an open mic and slam called Voltage that is put on by Still Waters Collective, and that is going to be going on this Friday from 6 to 8:30 at Bucket Works over on the south side. 5th and National, and it is something that happens every month, and it's part of this whole spoken word youth scene that I also kind of was a part of and still am a part of, and organizing with that. And so if you want to come, you know, hear some beautiful, hot spoken word by some talented young people from Milwaukee, you should definitely come check that out on Friday from 6 to 8:30 at Bucket Works. And there's going to be probably 2 young women performing this Friday that might be coming to join Molly in 2 weeks on the show.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just wanted to, I got to run and go feed my baby at home. But I wanted to thank Molly and everybody for the conversation.
Thank you. And thank you to Dominique, too, who put us in contact. So.
But, yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have you back.
Yeah.
All right. So did you want to start your show?
Yeah, I can transition in here. Thank you all for having me on.
Thank you for your time, John.
Yeah, no
Yes,
problem.
Yes.
Thank you all. I'm gonna put on that last song as I make the transition. So we have one more song coming from the Not Enough Mics Collective, and that is And Julie Stars with The One. And I'm gonna put this on as I set up for my show. So here we go. There we go.
Are you the one for me? Yeah. Are you the one for me? Yeah. Are you the one for me? Yeah. Are you the one for me? So love, I don't really know where it's going. I want love.